Modernist to Contemporary Design in Barcelona, a detailed look into Walden 7, by Juan J. Martinez and Matt Moreno. The Walden 7 project started in 1970 with the creativity of Ricardo Bofill, Taller de Arquitectura, a multidisciplinary firm managed by Ana and Ricardo Bofill, a brother and sister duo, along with many other talents that complete the team. Ricardo Bofill founded this firm in 1963 through the family business with the intention of it being an innovative and progressive multidisciplinary team of engineers, sociologists, philosophers, and architects to create modern design with social and cultural thought in the process. To understand Walden 7, we must first study the architect, Ricardo Bofill. Walden 7 was originally dubbed Space City with the intention of it being constructed in Madrid, but according to Ricardo Bofill, it failed to convince the city officials at the time. Walden 7 was inspired by Walden 2, a novel by B.F. Skinner, which consisted of the construction of a grand social housing block that will mimic a vertical city, with homes, streets, stores, and other commercial entities. Here we will tell the story of Walden 7, from its initial construction to now, 43 years later, and our experience as we visited the building complex and examined it from the outside, inside, and from the ground floor to the 14th floor. Walden 7 is located on Avenida de la Industria, number 14, in the metropolitan area of Barcelona. It sits on an old cement factory in which the ruins were refurbished by Ricardo Bofill, Taller de Arquitectura, in 1973, and houses Ricardo Bofill's firm and his private residence. The chimney stack houses a restaurant and a music club right below. Construction on Walden 7 started in 1973 on a minimal social housing budget with the intention of creating 3 monumental vertical city block buildings with a garden between the 3. The social and economic issues plagued the project from the beginning and forced drastic changes, leaving only 1 building out of the 3 completed and with many issues. Walden 7 is one of many projects by Ricardo Bofill, Taller de Arquitectura, that according to Ricardo Bofill at the time, addressed most of the problems of modern city life, like providing public spaces and gardens for residents to enjoy a better quality of life while connecting with their neighbors, a utopian approach. Like his previous project, Kafka Castle in 1968, located in Sant Pere de Ribes, Barcelona, Spain. This project explores solutions to the problems of modern city life and are innovative in construction. Ricardo Bofill uses a postmodern approach to Walden 7. His rejection to modernism is so visible in the building design and in interviews with him at the time. During an interview when he is asked how he feels about modernism and Le Corbusier, his response is, and I quote, "As I said, the architecture I like is not the architecture of Le Corbusier or Gropius and their whole rejection of history, or rather, their belief that history started with them." End of quotes. He goes on to say that architecture is more than 4,000 years old and we shall always use this knowledge when designing in the future. The Walden 7 complex has 18 towers that slowly curve into and away from each other. This produces corridor-like sidewalks or catwalks that connect you horizontally or vertically with the entire building, like a small community in a vertical position. Walden 7 materials are concrete, stucco, and cladding. Lots of cladding. It is 16 floors high, including the terrace that has 2 pools. The front facade facing west forms a massive M that extends from the 1st floor to the 14th floor. The back facade facing east has 2 massive voids that extend from the 3rd floor to the 12th floor and form 2 huge O's. These type of multi-level voids on the building's facade are also present in Ricardo Bofill's Espèces de Abraças project in France. The multiple-story high Arch de Triomphe is a perfect example of the postmodernism Ricardo Bofill, Taller de Arquitectura, was experiencing at the time. Ricardo Bofill created volumetric overlapping and closed extruding cubes on Walden 7 that begin to create voids between the compositions of each apartment, made from squared modules of about 28 meters. There are more than 500 apartments. Some start with just one of these modules and some apartments extend to 4 modules. But according to Gabor and Araceli, tenants there's an apartment on the 14th floor that has 8 modules, which expands over 2 floors. Just like the Whitney Museum by Marcel Bruen in New York, Walden 7 stands out from the urban fabric of its time. It has that same brutalist feeling as you approach it and stand right in front of it. The building becomes alive, as if it moved over your head, and now your view of the sky has been covered with the bottom of each window bay and balcony floor. An upside-down pyramid, an uneasy view. As we approach the building complex from the tram stop, the building's grand front facade superimposes itself with all the surrounding buildings, modern and mid-century alike, a juxtaposition. The red color, the extruded windows, and the separated towers with voids along the middle and in between each tower gives it a mountainous feeling, just like the serrated mountains in the distance, a vernacular approach. As Ricardo Bofill explains it in an interview of how he loved nature, especially the desert. This terracotta red color fortress gives us a strange uneasy feeling, but the bright yellow color that frames the entrance, which is 6 stories high, compels us to go inside. When we walked inside, the first thing we noticed was the inner color of the walls, a turquoise blue, offsets the terracotta and shiny red tiles on the window bays and balconies on each level, all the way to the 14th floor. An overwhelming, frightening sensation flooded our mind. There were corridors all over the place, many directions to go, like a maze. The tiles helped bring light in from the open sky above us. This was a good thing because the apartments themselves came out from the walls and blocked the direct sunlight above us. We could see 2 massive concrete towers right in front of us, the nucleus, that housed 8 elevators and egress stairs that ran from the parking below to the 16th floor and connected all the corridors from the other 16 towers. We quickly chose the elevator because the stairs were very dim. The only light was a small wall lamp that was knee-high. It gave off a vibe as if we were standing in a scary movie scene, a dark, isolated space. As we visited the 4th floor and explored the rounded window extrusions, its multiple floor voids, corridors, and the rounded balconies that are strategically put at certain points along the way so we could glance towards the sky above and the ground below. As we got into the elevator and went to the next floor, we noticed that there was only even numbers on the buttons, and thus confirming that the corridors that connect the towers are only on even floors. We noticed how some apartments on the 3rd and 5th floor had their own private stairs, and figured that these floors have only one level, probably composed of 1 or 2 modules. As we walked through the corridors, we noticed that each corridor had a name of an important person in history, like some streets do in the city, like Cassius Clay, Ivan Pavlov, and Albert Einstein, to name a few. Here you can see how some openings have window bays that are 2 stories high, and some openings cover up 4 stories of window and balcony superimposed bays. We see this again in the Especies de Abrachas project, where the neoclassical columns are 9 stories high and fluted by glass with a multi-story capital, a neoclassical postmodernism example. From the 8th floor, we noticed that there was way more sunlight flooding this floor compared to the 1st floor, which felt dark and damp. Was this a flaw that was overlooked by Ricardo Bofill, Taller de Arquitectura? We were also able to appreciate the old cement factory ruins redone into his architecture firm at the north end, where 6 silos stand. Once we arrived to the 14th level of Walden 7, we were able to appreciate the sunlight a lot better, especially in the alley corridors. We walked on the outside perimeter of each building tower through the corridors and were able to appreciate spectacular views of the mountains and the city center of Barcelona with the Mediterranean Sea in the background. But not both at the same time. But if you're one of the lucky ones living on the northeast side, then you're able to see it all: the mountains, Barcelona, and the Mediterranean Sea. We tried going to the 16th floor, but the elevator would not allow us there. From the 14th floor, we were able to see one of the terrace pools. From this level, we were able to get a better feeling of how the corridors connect the 18 towers of Walden 7. The climb to this floor is worth it, but only if you're one of the ones living up here. The bottom levels are still dark and scary and not comforting at all, specifically if you have to go down the stairs. As we descended to the ground level, we noticed that a lot of commercial business spaces were not in use, and some were now offices with no access through them. But there were still some public commerce visible from the outside. Walden 7 will always be a building of contradiction due to initial financial construction issues that plagued this project from the beginning. Ricardo Bofill sees this project as a failure and doesn't want to revisit the past. He is continuously moving forward with Ricardo Bofill, Taller de Arquitectura, as an innovative firm that states that postmodernism is also an important part of his past, when utopia was in the forefront of many architects, especially him. Emily King talks of her stay at Walden 7 early in 2016 and states that Walden 7 is a cohesive community with an active residents association who have devised amenities such as art classes for kids, nude sunbathing enclosures on the roof, and a book club, among others. We believe that Walden 7 was the culmination of postmodernism in Spain for Ricardo Bofill, as Walden 7 was the last big project before he moved on to France to start on Les Halles Garden in 1975, Les Arcades du Lac in 1981, and Les Species de Abraches in 1982, to name a few of his postmodern projects, which reject the stylistic and ideological restraints of modernism. As we were leaving Walden 7, we actually felt sad because of the spectacular views from the 14th floor. We came to a conclusion that even though the residents from Walden 7 live in a good community and have great communication with their neighbors and are involved in the activities created by them, the ones living in the lower floors are most likely waiting to move to the upper floors for the views and the natural light.